Hi students, welcome back. In this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the syllabus and some of the assignments and requirements of the course and the way I'm going to approach this class. So I'm just going through the syllabus here and draw your attention first of all to the course themes. So these are going to be topics, ideas that come up pretty regularly as we study the history of Asia. We're going to look at the origins of these societies, how these societies were first formed and what those very early societies were like. We're going to look at the different ways that these societies were governed. We're looking at huge areas of land, India and China, and so we're looking at the different ways that these huge areas were governed, and in particular we're looking at what sort of factors led to greater political unification, building of empires that ruled over these entire areas of Asia, and what policies and factors contributed to a more fragmented or a more individualistic political environment. All of these societies that we're going to study are going to be shaped by their interactions with the outside world. So we're going to look at the different ways in which these different societies incorporated outsiders who migrated into these regions, whether it's the Aryans in India or the Mongols in China. To what extent were these societies successful in melding new peoples into their society? To what extent did they not do this? We're going to look at the different religions and the different philosophical schools that these societies developed. These are the most important ways in which these civilizations tried to explain their own existence, the meaning of their own existence. So we're going to look at Confucianism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Shinto in Japan. We're going to look at all these different schools of thought. Schools of belief. And lastly, and this is coming back to the question of outsiders in a certain sense, all of these societies at a certain point have to interact with Europeans. And so how do they do that? How do they respond to European ideas? Ideas like nationalism, communism, economic ideas like capitalism and industrialization. To what extent did these Asian regions adopt these ideas? To what extent did they change them? So we're going to look at that as well. So I think these are all really fascinating topics. If I ask you to write essays during the course, it'll probably be based on one of these questions. This is just the normal stuff that you have in all your Eastern syllabi. And then we come to grading and the course assignments. So for attendance, make sure you're watching the media site lectures. I will take attendance on those lectures. You need to watch the lectures. To gain credit for attendance, you need to watch those lectures in the first couple of weeks after I put them up. Each week you'll have a journal entry. These are pretty straightforward. It's just an opportunity for you to reflect on your progress in the course, what you're finding rewarding, what you're finding difficult. It helps you to reflect. It helps me to listen, read your reflections, and no one else apart from me is going to see them. The discussions. Each week we're going to have discussion boards of different primary source historical documents. So different sources that were written at the time of the time period that we're studying. This gives you a direct window into how people communicated at this time. Now, there are two different models of discussion in this course. And so I'm going to take you back to the Blackboard shell for a second here. The first, and the one you're probably most familiar with, is the one that you see in week 1 with the introductory discussion. So here, you just have to post a short response saying who you are, where you're from, something that you learned about the material, and then you have to make 2 comments on 2 other students' posts. But with these discussions, you will not see the other posts until you've made your post. You've probably seen this before. And I think this is a really good way of having an online discussion board. It means that I get a unique response from each of you. You're responding directly to the material. I think that's really helpful. One issue, however, that I've noticed with these discussions is that a lot of times the students don't engage with one another properly. So you're in your own bubble. You write your own post, you put it up there, and you make two kind of throwaway comments really quickly, and then we move on, and there's an extent to which we're not really having a discussion. So I am combining these types of discussions, which we'll have most weeks, with the sorts of discussion that you see in week 2. And here already we are reading one of our great book texts for this course, the Panchatantra. It's a collection of Indian animal stories. It's a great source. But for this discussion, we're only going to have one thread. We're only going to have one thread, and so we're just going to focus on these first 2 questions. You should make a response that's about 150 words long, but you can see the thread before you make your first response. So as I say, it's crucial for this discussion to be successful that you look at the thread, you look at what other people have said, you react and you respond to what other people are saying so that we're having a proper conversation. And then as the discussion moves forward, I'm going to introduce new questions into the discussion when I feel that we've adequately addressed these first 2 questions. So bear in mind that we have these 2 models of discussion here. A couple of points about the discussion. You'll have access to the rubric. The rubric is possible to view. Let me see if I can take you through to that right now. Let's just start with this one. And so you can see the rubric here. This is where you pull it up. It tells you what you need to complete. Many of you have taken classes with me before. This is basically the same rubric. 2 things that I really don't like when students do in discussions that I'm bringing up now to warn you against. The first is this question of timeliness. It really rubs me up the wrong way when students wait until 15 minutes before the discussion is due to get involved in the discussion. That's not having a discussion. That's just completing a comprehension exercise. This is supposed to be more than that. All the assignments for this class are due on by the end of the day on Saturday each week. That means you should be getting involved in this discussion before the end of the day on Thursday, maybe before midday on Friday if you want to get full credit. The other thing is students making throwaway comments that are not advancing the discussion. As I said, it's supposed to be a discussion, so you're supposed to be advancing the conversation. If all your comment does is to say, like, what a good job someone did on their post, and there's nowhere for anyone to take the conversation after that, that's a bad comment. So make sure that your comments are properly advancing the discussion. Lastly, make sure you reference the readings. Make sure you include a quote from the source in your initial discussion post. I think this, and then you show evidence to prove it. It's crucial when you're doing history that you have evidence to support your arguments. So that's me off my soapbox on discussions. I'm saying this now so that it's helpful, so that you know how I'm going to grade these assignments. Okay, so we've talked about discussions. Now we're going to go back to the syllabus. We're going to talk about the papers for this class. As I say, we have these 2 book-length sources, the Emperor of China, the Panchatantra. They're both great sources. They're each about 150 pages long, so however long it takes you to read 150 pages, to read it carefully, take careful notes on them. You need to spend that time in order to be properly prepared to write these papers. If you want any help getting started early on these papers, let me know. I'm happy to work with you. And we're going to have 2 discussions on each of these sources before you write the paper. So it's not as though you have to write this cold. You're going to gain the benefits of discussing with me and discussing with the other students before you submit your paper, before you submit your analysis of these sources. So there's no need to feel anxious that you have no idea, you have no other interpretation but your own to go on before submitting it as a paper. There'll be plenty of time for that. Lastly, we're going to have 5 exams. Most of these exams will just be multiple choice and fill in the blank questions. And so they have somewhere between 15 and 30 questions. There may be some essays as well. As I say, if they are, they'll be based on those thematic questions that I posed at the beginning of the syllabus. So I don't think these will be too difficult as long as you're keeping up with the work. Now, just a little bit about the structure of the course, and then we'll bring this video to an end. Obviously, we are covering an enormous amount of information in this class. We have to cover the largest continent in the world from the very origins of history to the present day. So we're talking about 12,000 years of history and maybe a little more on the front end. So everything is going to be pretty summarized. It's going to be difficult for us to go into depth. The idea is that you get your feet wet in Asian history by studying this course. The way that I've broken this course down is into themes. So we will spend the first 5 weeks studying the history of India. Then we will spend 3 weeks studying Southeast Asia and the history of Japan. Then spring break. Then we will move on to the study of China, and we will spend the 6 weeks after the midterm studying the history of China. So I hope that's helpful to everyone. You only have to keep one civilization straight in your mind, and we get to focus on one society, one region more intensely as we make our way through it. Like I say, I wish we had more time. Each of these civilizations probably deserves its own course, but this is just a starter and an introduction to the history of Asia. So I hope you enjoy the course. Don't hesitate to contact me if I can help you in any way, and I'll see you in prehistoric India.